thank you very much for the opportunity to come and tell you more about A Bolder Way Forward. As was mentioned, my name is Jessica Miller, and I am one of the Utah County co-leads. A Bolder Way Forward is a statewide initiative. It's a grassroots movement, and so on the state level, each of the counties now has a county coalition, and so I am one of the county co-leads. Karen Hill is another, and she's here as well. And so we are just at the forefront, at the beginning of getting our message out, telling people more about what A Bolder Way Forward is, why it is so important, and how people can help. So A Bolder Way Forward started with Dr. Susan Madsen and the Utah Women in Leadership Project that are at Utah State University. And Dr. Susan Madsen has extensive, in her research, she's looked at women in leadership, as well as just the broader studies of how women and girls are doing in Utah. And this initiative really grew out of the fact that there's more and more data and statistics that are showing that women and girls in Utah are persistently not thriving in critical areas. And so, some of those critical areas are in terms of domestic violence, child sexual abuse, sexual assault, gender-based discrimination, as well as just Utah ranking low in terms of women equality and the participation of women in government leadership, as well as nonprofit leadership and private leadership in business. And so as Dr. Madsen saw this data, and it was continuing over time, she really just felt this urgency that we needed to make a change. Because as things were going, we are making some gains, but if we don't make changes, then it's going to take 3 or 4 decades just for women in Utah to have many of the same opportunities and outcomes that women in other parts of the United States are experiencing in these areas. And so that's how A Bolder Way Forward was born. And so it's about lifting Utah girls and women, but it's about lifting all of Utah. It's not a competition. It's about raising the experience of everyone so that everyone has the opportunity to experience the economic prosperity that is a part of what Utah is about and what Utah seeks for everyone to have here in Utah. So these critical areas came to be called as spoke areas. And so there's safety and security, health and well-being, education, community engagement, and workplace. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight a little bit of what the statistics are, what the data is that really highlights why this is such an important area to focus our attention here in Utah. So within safety and security, this is looking at adverse childhood experiences. Have any of you ever heard of adverse childhood experiences? So these are experiences that data has shown really have a strong correlation with negative health and life outcomes. And so these are things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, divorce, mental illness in the home, incarceration, a relative who's incarcerated. And so there's 10 of them. And so Utah really is similar with those across the nation in terms of those that have 1 to 3 of these adverse childhood experiences in their life. There really is that common representation. But when it comes to those who have 4 or more of these adverse childhood experiences, Utah has there's a higher prevalence. And among females with 4 or more ACEs, the percentage is about 18.3%. And among men, it's 13.9%. And so this is an area where we can turn our attention to try to remove these from future generations from experiencing them. What are we doing to address child abuse? What are we doing to address neglect? And so we can strengthen the generations so that they don't have these experiences and can benefit and be stronger moving into adulthood. So in terms of child sexual abuse, in 2021, 21.4% of Utah school girls reported that within the previous year they had experienced unwanted kissing, touching, or being forced to have sexual intercourse one or more times. And this is higher than what the national average was for high school females. And so this is an area that I don't think Utah wants to be higher than the nation in. And so this is an area where I think it's important that we address and prevent child sexual abuse in Utah. And adult females, right along with that, report one or more incidences of sexual abuse over their lifetime, and that's 19.2%. Also, another area within safety and security is domestic violence. 33.6% of women will experience contact, sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking in her lifetime. This is here in Utah. And once again, that's not what we want for women in Utah. 41.6 will experience psychological aggression. And so that's just one of the spokes, safety and security, but it's definitely an area in which we can improve. And a bolder way forward, we have there are representatives that are focused on those particular areas so that we can, within a state, kind of organize so that we can make a difference and change these statistics for future generations. Health and well-being. This is looking at women's health across their lifespan. It's also looking at mental health. And depression is much more prevalent among women than men in Utah. And so why is that, and how can we prevent that, and how can we improve those statistics and improve mental health across the board for both men and women? Utah ranks 49th out of 50 as far as their depression rate for women. And this links as well to suicide. Utah has a high rate of suicide, and that's also another statistic in which we don't want to be at the forefront. We want to be able to address mental health and to provide prevention as well as interventions before it gets to the point where someone would consider ending their own life. Preventative health, another area for women that we can improve in Utah. We rank 49th out of 51 in women's preventative health care. And so preventative care is so important, and why not be number one in preventative care for health, across the board, men or women? And so this is another area that within A Bolder Way Forward, there's structure which will also be able to address preventative health. Physical activity, we're finding that among high school students, there's less physical activity among girls, and so we can improve there as well. The next spoke area is education, and this looks at both early childhood education all the way up to post-secondary education. And so within that frame, there's room for growth. One of the areas is that we rank last for 8th grade math score disparity. So girls are scoring much lower on 8th grade math than men, and that difference between boys and girls is highest among all the states in the nation. And so, this is really important because that 8th grade math really has been shown to be an indicator for their math performance and all throughout high school, and that preparation is critical for post-secondary education.
To make sure I understand what you're saying, it's not necessarily that our girls score the lowest in math, it's just that the difference between the boys and the girls is the greatest.
Correct.
Even if our girls do mediocre in the country, our boys are so much higher. Exactly,
that's right. That is what that is stating. And so it's interesting, and I was going to mention this though later on in the survey. A Bolder Way Forward released a survey that they distributed throughout the state, and we were able to look at the respondents that looked at Utah County. And one of the areas where there really showed ambivalence amongst Utah County residents was that they didn't feel that it was as important for girls to take these higher math and just advanced courses in general, not just math, as it is for boys to prepare for future college and careers. And so I think that there is some area that we can look at what are the attitudes within Utah County, and how can our attitudes then be as we change our attitudes, then hopefully we can change this so that there is more of an equality between boys and girls in how they are performing on math and in all of their classes as a preparation for post-secondary education and career. College degree attainment. So Utah really does, in terms of bachelor's degree, there really isn't much of a difference between men and women in terms of their attainment of bachelor's degrees. Where you really see the difference is in those advanced degrees. And more, those advanced degrees are really what is important for having an income that can support your family and that can allow you to thrive. And so this is another area where we can improve. We're last in the nation in terms of where the difference between men and women achieving those higher degrees. And so as we raise women and stress the importance of these higher degrees, it strengthens the importance that is communicated to everyone across the board of education and the preparation that it makes for you to be able to provide for a family and provide for yourself, and to be able to then serve and share in your community. And so once again, we have 14% of males that will go on for an advanced degree versus 9.3% of females. Community engagement. This is looking at political as well as volunteerism and just voting in general. We rank 46th on the Represent Women's Gender Parity Index. And so we have some room for growth in terms of community engagement. We're consistently underrepresented in nearly every level of political leadership position within the state. And whether that's the Congress, on the national level, in our state legislature, county commissioners, school boards, there definitely is greater participation as you become closer and closer on a local level. But as far as looking at how we compare with other states, there's still underrepresentation among women on all of these levels. And it's very important that women's voice is heard from, on all of these levels, because I think that there's a viewpoint there, there's experience there, there's wisdom that's just as valuable on, that should also have be heard and be able to then be a representation for other women who may not be able to have their voice be heard. Workplace. Utah ranks 48th out of 50 for gender income disparity. And so in terms of the same work, women are earning about 70 cents for the dollar that men are earning. And so there's room there that we can improve that. And one of the factors about that is quality childcare. And it's something that I didn't necessarily think of initially when I thought about the workplace and how it impacts men and women differently. But Utah has, there's a lot of childcare deserts in Utah, meaning that it's very hard to find quality childcare that is affordable, that families will be able to use so that they can choose how much they want to be in the workplace. Utah has the highest percentage of women who work part-time compared to all of the other states. And one of the factors that may be playing a factor in that, I know from my personal experience, it played a factor, was childcare. You have to weigh the cost of childcare versus the cost of what you're bringing in, and is it affordable to get childcare, or do you end up just working for your childcare? And so we do rank 48th out of 50 in the childcare index, and that is something that we can improve on, and it impacts all income levels, more so those that are single women single parent women who they do need to work, and so there is a need for childcare, and yet it's hard for them to find affordable quality childcare. So this is the framework that grew out of Susan Madsen's desire to impact and look at all of the different areas that are where women need to thrive. And so we have the 5 spoke areas: education, health and well-being, safety and security, workplace, and community engagement. And within those, there are smaller areas called spokes. And so within education, we have finance, we have higher education attainment, and we have K through 12 initiatives. In health and well-being, we have health across the lifespan and home and family. Safety and security, child sexual abuse, domestic violence, poverty, homelessness, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and gender-based discrimination. In workplace, we have child care, pre-K programs, entrepreneurship, gender pay gap, leadership development, organizational strategies and workplace culture, STEM fields and workplace development, and then in community engagement, political representation, boards and commissions, and civic engagement and advocacy. So within the framework, on the state level, there are spoke leaders who are taking on each of these 17 different areas. And then within the county coalitions, there are going to be spoke representatives. And so we're in the process of recruiting spoke representatives, individuals that have a passion, have a desire to make a difference in these different areas for Utah women and girls. And then they will be connected with the state reps and can help to kind of organize what happens within Utah County, how within Utah County, we can address these different areas. Also, if you notice, this is a wagon wheel, and so on the rim of this wagon, there are other kind of influences that also will impact what we do. And within that, there's sexism, identity, culture, male allyship. And so the goal is to move this wheel with all these spokes up the hill, and it's an uphill road. Change always is. You have to, the status quo is going to want to change, and so, but we want to make change. And so as we push the wagon and work together to push the wagon up the wheel, then we're able to then have those change in outcomes that we're hoping to see for women and girls in the future. And so the goal is to have some change by 2030. That's not very far away. And the Boulder Way Forward, we're celebrating our 2nd year, and we'll check in at 2026 and see how we're doing so that we can make adjustments to different goals. But each of those spokes, they have created thriving statements. They've created goals and outcomes that they want to see that will kind of be indicators that we are making a change for the better for women and girls in Utah. And so it includes a shift from outputs to outcomes. And so it's not just about, getting the message out. We want to look at what change is actually coming from the message that we're putting out and the coordination that we're organizing. And so looking at those actual outcomes, being very data driven. And all of this is based on this book by Crutchfield. I'm forgetting her first name. But How Change Happens, Why Some Social Movements Succeed While Others Don't. And so she's looked at, why some movements were successful, why some weren't, what were the common characteristics that they found. And among grassroots movement, it really is important that there's broad participation, that people participate in their own way. So Rotary could participate in one way, and a different organization participates in another way. And as you work together towards a common outcome, then it just reinforces what each other is doing. It's all a part of systems thinking. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Systems are made of interrelated, interdependent parts, but they cannot be understood as a function of isolated components. And so they're working together, and they're supporting one another, and it makes something bigger than the individual efforts themselves. But it's those relationships that are really critical in that they need to be supporting the common cause and the common vision. And so that's a part of what a Boulder Way Forward is about, is that having that common vision that can help to guide the different individual efforts throughout the state. And so we want to make a place where more girls and women can thrive in any setting, and that, as I mentioned, that the different spokes have put together these goals, and they're linked to measurable outcomes so that we can actually look and see how we're doing to change things for women and girls. And we'll continue to, and you can go to the Boulder Way Forward website. I believe I have it on here coming up, but you can kind of get more information about statistics, about what's going on with the different spoke areas. And just as a kind of frame of reference, the different ways that are part of a grassroots movement vary and can be as unique as those that are participating. But among them are advocacy, communication, mentoring, messaging shifts, networking, philanthropy, public policy, research. All of these things, they have a place, and so we want to encourage creativity as we in Utah County know Utah County. How can we best address these issues in Utah County and kind of rely on that knowledge? And with that being said, these are kind of, as I mentioned, kind of the results that we got from the survey. And there was some ambivalence in terms of sexual child abuse as a problem in my immediate community. And another also ambivalence in terms of Utah men are not interested in supporting women, and that it's not as important for girls to take advanced coursework in high school to prepare for college career as boys. And so these are statements that I would hope that there wouldn't be ambivalence about, but that we can look at and feel strongly, feel the support that Utah men are interested in supporting women. I would want that to be something that women feel strongly about, that they have the support of men, and that they're willing to look at the data on child sexual abuse and to recognize that it's something that needs to be addressed. Also, another area of education that we can do in Utah County is just about communicating what the available resources are here in the county to help those that are experiencing domestic violence, those that are experiencing sexual assault, and also in business development. If someone were interested in developing a business, what resources are there for them to do that? And so it's valuable to have that information. Every society has its protectors of status quo and its fraternities of the indifferent, who are notorious for sleeping through revolutions. Today, our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. Martin Luther King Jr. And so we can do better, and in doing better and in working together to do better, everyone can thrive. And we can not only support women and girls, but we can support men and boys and just raise the bar for everyone. And Utah can become the national leader in how to implement positive change for girls, women, and families. And one of the things that I think is really exciting is the fact that, as I mentioned, Utah is ranked low in a lot of these different metrics. But I'm excited to see how we rank in 2030 as we rally the community together to address some of these areas. What changes can we make in these rankings? And so it's really will be exciting to see that change and to be a part of it, to see that Utah didn't want to be last, doesn't want to be last in these areas, and is willing to work together to make these improvements and changes. So here's more information. You can get involved and take a survey. This is a statewide survey, and this is about the statewide website. And then here is social media links. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. And then these are the co-leads here in Utah County. and then an email where you can reach us. And then our survey, we have a survey that we've put together. If you are interested in helping, we would love to have you fill out a survey so that we can find out how you want to participate. If there's a specific spoke that you would be interested in working on, a rim. So definitely fill out the survey, and that's my presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions. It really is a surprise, right? Because that's really not, I think, what people's experience, or they know what Utah is, and so maybe there isn't a knowledge or a frame of reference for how it is in other places. But yes, the statistics are showing that we do need to make some change and need to improve. And you know, one thing, I work at Community Action Services and Food Bank, and just with housing the way it is and inflation, there are more and more families where you just need to have dual income. And so the child care issue becomes even more important. The higher education becomes even more important. These things, the economics that we're moving into, that we're in right now, it really makes a difference that there is that equality there, because you want to make sure that you have opportunity. In life, you don't know what's going to come your way. And if a woman can stay home and be with her family, that's wonderful. More power to her, and there's value there. But not everyone has that opportunity. And so we want to make sure that there aren't barriers that are keeping women, but also the families, from experiencing the prosperity that is available to others in our community. Well, it's true. And really, to make lasting change, I don't think you want it to be something that's forced upon people. You really need to look at their values. You need to look at their beliefs and help them to see how they individually need to change, so that it's better for their daughters, it's better for their granddaughters, it's better for their nieces, you know, their wives. And that's how you're going to make change. Just like it talked about these movements, and one of them was with smoking. For so long, smoking was the norm, but you don't see people smoking anymore. And how did they do that? And part of it was education. Part of it was not necessarily telling people smoking is bad for you, because that was on the labels for years upon years upon years, but that didn't do the trick. It was all about, you know, changing their values, changing it on the individual personal level, and then it's an internal change, and it's not being forced upon you. And so that's one of the reasons we want to go out and get the message out, so that as people come to understand that it could be, that it needs to change, that it needs to be better, and then it's a matter of looking at, well, what can I do within my sphere to make it better. Thank you so much for letting us share the message about a bolder way forward, and hopefully you'll be interested in supporting what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.